cause an unnecessary county division for the political subdivisions. So within Loudoun County, there's various regions of Loudoun, and I'm from Northern Virginia. As I said before, I went to South Lakes High School in Reston, so I've seen Loudoun County develop in my lifetime, and I have some understanding of how things sit there. So this district is the Route 28 corridor, straight up to Route 7. Everything inside that is Sterling, so south of 7, and then along Route 28 to the Dulles Toll Road. And then to the north is Lowe's Island. So those are areas that, make a district that makes a lot of sense. Again, it's Sterling and it's Lowe's Island. Then I've got a district here in, let's look at this, District 28. This is primarily an Ashburn seat. So the core of it here is in Ashburn. But then what's happened is the new metro line is going right in along the Greenway, and there's been several new developments that are going to be at the anticipated metro stations, and that's proceeding. So some of these developments are in this Ashburn area. However, to the south, there's been a lot of growth in this part of Loudoun County. So you have areas that formerly had smaller populations, and a decade later, there's a lot more people. So this area here is South Riding, which is along the 50 corridor. So this is Route 50 that goes straight through. And then this area here is called South Riding. The other area over here is called Stone Ridge. And then it's also Aldi. So these areas here, a lot of them have an Aldi mailing address, and this is also the zip code boundary for Aldi. So there's a logic to dividing things up that way. And again, so that was District 28. So it's this newer growth area near the reservoir, and then down, I think it's Pleasant Valley or Gum Springs is one of the roads that crosses. And you've got Old Ox Road, which now has an exit on the Dulles Greenway. And so you've had sort of a redevelopment of this corridor down here along 606. And, I'm a little familiar with that. I go to a karaoke place that's right there. So this has been relatively new development. And then the other two districts in this area, you have a district that's primarily Leesburg, but it also includes other communities that are to the north. So this is the Route 15 corridor to the north, and if you've ever tried to drive to the Midwest, sometimes people will go through Route 15 to the point of Rocks Bridge. And you've got a smaller community of Lovettsville and Hillsborough, which are in the district, as well as Hamilton. So those are in a Leesburg-focused district with some of the northern rural areas. Then I've got the Route 50 corridor right here. As I mentioned, it's Stone Ridge, and then it's Middleburg, Aldi, and then you've got Clark County, and then you also have coming on the Route 7 corridor, you have Purcellville, which is an area that's distinct, from other areas around, in that it's a town with elections, a small community of Round Hill, and then out to Berryville, which is the seat for Clark County. So that's how those all associate together. Let me just see here if I missed anything. I'm at the 15-minute mark. So I covered all of the districts. I discussed each one and some of the concepts that went into it. And as the co-chair described at the beginning of this, I'm following the criteria that I was given, and I've taken as much information as I can into account in the process, and I've drawn the map as you see here. So I guess I'll stop just a little over 15 minutes and see if I can take any direct questions. Does that sound right? Or do you want to hold?
We can have a few questions now, and then we'll have the other map drawer present, and then we can have full discussion on both maps. But sure. I think Delegate Simon may have a pressing question.
Delegate Simon, yes.
Two questions, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So the first question was, and I think I know the answer, but just for everybody's benefit, I don't see any. Last time we had a little map of little heads, which I think at least somebody turned on the layer that showed incumbent. addresses approximately. Did you look at?
I haven't seen incumbent addresses. Nobody gave me that information. If somebody has that or wants to give it to me, I'm happy to take that in direct account.
Okay. And at some point, Madam Chair, I'm going to want to actually, I think it's important for all of us to see, we have the layer, and we've voted it's okay to have it. At some point, learn how to turn on that layer. I know VPAP does it. It seems like we ought to be able to see what other folks can turn on. So if there's a layer we can turn on.
Yeah, so you mentioned in VPAP, which I understand that's an outside group, and they may have that information or some facsimile of that.
No, I just, again, we'll get to that. I have a question about that, which I'm going to get to, I think, a little bit later, not just with your map. But
sure.
Then the second thing I was going to ask is, so you're talking about communities of interest, and it may be just that you don't have a lot to work with, but it sounds like, for the most part, I don't necessarily disagree with it, but most of it's just your own sort of life experiences and instincts sort of going around, and in some ways the topography and so forth, like for Clifton and Prince William. Were you able to use any feedback that we've received at any point during the process from the public or public comments or anything other than your sort of own gut about what constitutes communities of interest as you drew the district?
Well, in general, to answer that, I've taken some consideration from the commission in portions that I've heard. I mentioned Fredericksburg City as something that I've heard in this process. And as was disclosed earlier, I was one of the map drawers from 10 years ago and 20 years ago. So I do have quite a bit of experience with the communities. I'm certainly welcome. I welcome input from, any way you want to provide that to me. And I would say that, if something comes to your attention that you think, you want to apply some community of interest to what I've done, I'm happy to take that input.
And Delegate Simon, to further assist with that question, I think our issue is still, we're trying to catalog all of the public feedback so that we can give it needs to filter through us, and then we give it to the map drawers so that they're not responsible for sifting through every single thing that is there and deciding, they're not the ones that are deciding which feedback to use and which not to use that may be not clear in the criteria. That could be up for interpretation. We are to do the interpretation and then use these meetings to then give them further direction of which communities of interest they need to work on. But generally, yes, I think they're listening to the big ideas and that feedback. But the more specific comments, not yet, but they will.
And
if that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Greta Harris. We're about a week out from the communications and outreach folks being able to sift through thus far minimally a couple of thousand comments and be able to sort it by region. That's the instructions that we've given them. And then to try to catalog by velocity of comments. And so as an example, in some of the public hearings, we heard Fredericksburg keep it whole as an example. And so if we have, I don't know, a high percentage of comments that are that, then again, we will try to prioritize comments, and then as the co-chair stated, then give guidance to the map drawers to make refinements at that. But we're about a week away from having that sorting of all the public comments, both on the website. We're going to be asking members to give their email comments to this process, and then comments that are made at the public hearings and at our meetings.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Delegate Simon.
And I appreciate that. And I don't mean to sound critical at all of the map drawer. He's working with the information that he's got. I just, also for the public watching, I know you said that he's not deciding, but every line is a decision, and everything, and people get attached. As we put these out, people put a lot of weight on these preliminary drafts. And so I just want to make sure we're clear. I got a letter from the minority leader. I think we all got a letter from the minority leader who's concerned in the House that we're going to take votes on these things. And I think you made it pretty clear at the outset that this is a very fluid process. And I happen to agree with Delegate Gilbert that we need to see the whole map together. We need to make sure there's flexibility to reconfigure these things as we build out the rest of it. And I just also want to make sure that the map drawers people know they'll have opportunities to hear their feedback. Don't think for instance, if you live in Arlington, just because we did that last week, don't think it's too late to let us know what you think of how Arlington got divided up. And this is to the public watching, or Falls Church, or anywhere else. I think we still want and are going to need people's feedback on what their communities of interest are.
That's
Thank you, Madam Chair.
absolutely correct. This is a rolling process and a layering process. So we want to make maybe some bigger decisions now, or not official decisions, but some bigger, get the bigger concepts down, and then we're layering on the continuing feedback and sifting through it as it comes in, because the public can't react until they have something to react to. So it's going to be continued and fluid.
If I may respond to Delegate Simon's comment.
Absolutely.
I would just say that, this is a framework that I was well thought out from my point of view. I put a lot of effort and time into thinking through carefully each of these districts. For example, I spent 4 hours specifically looking at Loudoun County as an example. And so I have put a lot of thought into this. I well understand that there's a lot of other input that can come in, and I'm happy to work with the commission to take that input. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Harrell.
There's an assumption that has been made in comments here that we are supposed to follow either by velocity, I believe that was the co-chair's word, or by strenuous of comments, or by other ideas we're supposed to get from people who object